for the Wellbeing Festival. Today's session regarding resilience, and it's all about you. So my name is Alexandra Ridley and I'm the organisational culture lead at the University Hospitals of Northamptonshire. I'm being supported today's session by Dawn West, who is the OD facilitator at NHFT. Just some housekeeping before we start. We have muted everybody's microphones in order to reduce the background noise on our recordings, but we'd encourage you all to keep your cameras on so that we can see and interact with you throughout the session. If you do wish to ask a question during the session, please pop that in the chat box and we'll be asking questions at the end. We'll also then open up the floor to raise your hand and put your microphones on at that point if you had a question you wanted to ask. We are recording today's session so that colleagues can catch up later in the week. And audio transcription is available for colleagues who require this by clicking on the three dots at the top of the screen. As I've said, please do use the chat function for all comments and questions throughout the session, but we'll just encourage you to remain respectful and kind to all colleagues. I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Dave, who's one of our senior OD facilitators at NHFT, and he's going to lead us through today's session. Thanks, Dave.
No, spot on. Cheers, Alex. Thank you very much for that introduction. Yeah, be kind to me, throwing in the last minute to come up with something for today. So that's where we're at. So am I resilient? What is resilience? So we're going to have some, hopefully, some interaction, and please use the chat box and everything else that's there. And we'll look at some slides, and hopefully towards the end we can have a bit of a conversation or questions. But when I was looking at this the other day, I thought, oh, cool, I'm quite nervous. But hang on, I do this for a living. This is my job. So one thing I thought about being resilient is sometimes it can feel uncomfortable when we go through stuff like emotional well-being, physical, doesn't matter what it is, but it can feel uncomfortable. And what does that look like? Well, when things happen to us, sometimes we revert to type. So we'll go back to what's always been comfortable. So let's not talk about it. Let's not deal with it. Let's not get back out there. Let's not do this. Because that means we're facing challenge, change, whatever it is, and that can feel, like I said, uncomfortable. So if you're willing, do a little exercise with me. Entertain me for a second. So all you need is two of these. Okay, so put your hands out in front of you like this if you can. Okay, and just follow my instructions. So we're going to go 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to tell you to do something, and you just do it, and we'll have a chat if you like, or put in the chat box. But 3, 2, 1, just interlock your fingers the way you've always done it. So you've probably got one thumb on top of the other. Okay, so I'm left thumb dominant, so my left thumb's on top. So if you're like me, just give me a, like I'm doing a wiggle or whatever. So I can see a couple of people there. Okay, and for the other people, you must be right thumb dominant. Okay, and then you do get some people that go down the middle. But how does it feel? And I just want you to just break and chat, put it in the chat box, and just put, how does it feel when you've put your hands like that? Is it comfortable? Was it easy? Did you have to think about it? And I can look at the chat box.
Would you like me to enable people's microphones so they can come in?
Do you know what? Yes, please. That'd be brilliant. Yeah, that's even better. Because then we can shout and talk at each other and all sorts of stuff. So if you want to take your microphone off and do that, or we have.
So you should be able to unmute yourselves now. Microphones enabled. Brilliant.
So Sarah says comfortable. Okay, so I can see some comfort zones going on there. Doesn't need, I like that. So yeah, doesn't need, think fairly comfortable. No one really thinking about it. And even now, 30 seconds in, does it still feel comfortable and okay? But that's what we do. But actually, when we face difficulties in our life and it feels uncomfortable, what do we do about that? So here's the real part of the exercise. So I want you to keep them as they are. I'm going to give you another instruction and you just follow it. And once again, we'll have a conversation or put it in the chat box. So 3, 2, 1, take them apart and interlock them the other way around. So your different thumb is dominant. Okay, I can see some people looking like they got 3 hands all of a sudden, and some people shaking their heads. So, all right, what's going on there? So you can shout at me or you can put it in the chat box. Does it feel different? Does it
Yeah.
feel? Yeah, it does. Okay, cheers. I think that was
Very
Sarah shouting at
weird.
me. I recognise that. Feels what?
Re-
Sorry.
It's really weird.
Feels weird. Okay, what do you want to do with that? Very strange. What do you want to do with that weirdness or that uncomfortableness? I've just made a word up. Uncomfortableness. I'm having that. Do you want to put it back? That's what we do. But to become resilient, we have to learn to go through the uncomfortableness over a period of time. Because if we kept doing it the other way, what would eventually happen? We would get used to it. We'd become more resilient to doing things differently. So that's just a little simple exercise. If you didn't feel any different, what you can do is fold your arms and then fold them the other way around. Okay, that's just another way. If you didn't feel any difference there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is share my screen, and hopefully we'll do some more interaction as we go through. So let's start with this really interesting screen, which hopefully people can see, and it's probably blank at the moment. Oh, I've lost all my colleagues at the moment. So let me use that because that's important so I can see you. So what is resilience? Well, let's have a look on here. Let's have a look. So I'm not going to read it word for word, but psychologists define it as that, okay? Process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. Now, I don't want you to all share at this point, but I'm sure you can all reflect on where you are up to in your life now and go, I've been through something. I've been through something. And it can be the worst of things, and it can be even the things that you might feel weren't significant. And it could be someone who's just missed a bus, late for work, broke a plate, whatever. It's all about how that person deals with it. Now, what I like is when I look at resilience. I went on a resilience course many years ago, and someone said to me, it's about bouncing back, Dave. You need to bounce back. And I was like, hang on, no, I need to bounce back. Right, so in my previous life, I spent all that time in the military. I never bounced back. I dragged myself back. Some of it wasn't like a month or a week. Some of it was years of getting there. So when I'm looking into this, I was like, oh, actually, let's look if there's any other definitions, any other themes. And what I want you to do, because it is about you, I can't tell you what resilience means to you. I want you to think about what it does mean to you. How do you think and feel about resilience? For me, when I think of myself, I like the bottom one. Learning to grow, not to crumble through adversity. And that could be anything I've been through in my life. That could be grief, trauma, missing the bus. It could be making a mistake. It doesn't matter what it is. But I like that because actually everything I've done in my 52 years-ish, I've actually learned to grow. And I've gone down to a bit where I'm down on my luck or I'm down at the bottom of whatever. My emotional tank is empty. My mental health tank is empty. But then how did I then move up? And we're going to explore some of that. But I just want you to think what it is for you personally. What is it resilience is? Because everywhere I've often gone on courses and stuff, people tend to tell me, this is what resilience is, Dave. You need to bounce back. And I'm like, it wasn't that easy for me. So resilience is quite a personal thing. There will always be tough times, tough challenges. They will arise. Look what it says. We have life ups and downs all the time. We experience them differently. Who's ever been on a roller coaster? Who's ever been on a roller coaster? Anyone like roller coasters? Okay. Okay, so I saw then, I think, Wendy, I saw you shaking your head, okay? So you don't like them. So I do. So imagine me and Wendy on the exact same roller coaster now, the biggest and scariest one ever. I'm going to be hands-free, smiling, loving it, taking selfies, while Wendy's probably gripping it, going, get me off here. I'm never going back on that in my life. And we'll go through the exact same experience, but have different emotional and physical reactions. So we experience everything differently. We've also got to think of ourselves as that holistic human being. Be compassionate to yourself. You're not work. You're not just work. You're more than work. You are home, work, health, social. You are this whole being. And the days of leave your problems at home and come to work, that doesn't exist. That's 1970s manual stuff. We need to think about, we all experience tough times and you can't separate them. It's not that easy. They impact on our mental, our physical and emotional well-being. The thing is when we then start to see them as problems instead of challenges, and we can get stuck because a problem is difficult. However, that thing that's happened to me, if it's a challenge, what can I do? And the good news is, once we start to become more resilient, then we can respond differently because we've experienced it. We can learn from it. The biggest thing we can do is learn from something, because then we can grow. We can grow our mental well-being, our physical well-being, our emotional well-being. We can grow all sorts from it. And by doing that, we can remain adaptable and flexible to any given changing situation. Now, that's a military term that was taught to me back in 1990 when I first joined the military, and it never left me until I retired, because actually everything you do, we had to adapt and be flexible. There was never one plan fits all. There was never one emotional outcome. It was all different. But what we can do is set goals, not big goals, little goals, tiny goals, whatever it is, but we make changes. Now, I like the quote here by Michelle Obama. Has anyone got children? Anyone got children? You can wave at me, you can nod your heads, do whatever. I've got two children. Okay, they're lovely most of the time. They're feral the rest of the time. Okay, but they come home from school. They are 12 and 14, and they are so worried about failing. So worried. Teacher says we've got to get this mark. Teacher, and I'm like, they're 12 and 14. Calm down. Learn to fail. Because if we fail, what can we learn? What can we find out? And I encourage my children every day, fail, 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 fail. Biggest thing is though, what do we learn? And even I do that. I will then ask them, how do I do this level 1 maths, this level 2 maths? Someone come and help me. So we can learn through failure, and failure is really important. So there is good news, and that's really important. But what I want us to think about is everything we do is connected. Our mental, our physical, and our emotional well-being, they're all connected when it comes to being resilient or not resilient. And it's about how they affect you. I can't sit there and say, you've gone through this and this is how you will act. This is what the outcome will be. That will be your journey. I can be part of that, Joe. I can be part of that journey because it's how I support. It's how I show empathy, listen to understand, but then the compassion. How can I help? How can I support? Because we all need that connection. Think about mobile phone. If everyone got a mobile phone or a laptop or whatever, take the charger out of it, it lasts a while, doesn't it? It's working really well. And then what starts to happen? Gives you little warnings, doesn't it? Plug me in, I'm about to go off. And the lights dim on it, some of the apps don't work. And that's what's happening to us as we become less resilient. And what we need is to find that balance, those people around us, those supportive mechanisms, that it might be something putting the charge back into us, getting us motivated. It might be us reaching out to connect. That could be work colleagues, home colleagues, family, whatever it looks like. But how are we going to do that? We need to find that connection. Everything is connected when it looks at resilience. Now, it's not just about how we endure, though. We don't go through all this tough time and just go, hey, look at me, here's my Superman t-shirt, and off I go. It's not about that. It's about how we recharge daily, weekly, monthly. I don't know how many senior managers or even managers I've got on this call here now, but I went on an interesting conference recently. I work for an organisation outside the trust called March on Stress, and I deliver a product called TRIM, Trauma Risk Management. And they were talking about role model behaviour at the highest level, that if your boss, your senior, your leader isn't having their breaks, it doesn't matter what you say to everyone else. They will eventually role model what you're doing, and they won't have breaks because it's seen to be the norm not to do it. So we must have breaks. We must recharge. You are important. Now, battery levels. Where am I right now? My battery, yeah, I'm about the yellow one. I'm doing all right. We're nearly through the day. I've had about 2 lots of this water stuff. I've had a lunch break. I've been out with a dog. I'm doing okay. But at some point, I need to recharge myself as well. Kids will come home, wife will come home. There'll be lots doing. But at some point, around about 9:30, 10 o'clock, everyone will go to bed and I can go and watch some really rubbish TV, which is my selfish recharge time. When I get to just be alone and watch something that is really daft. Now, it could be zombies, Walking the Dead, whatever, but it's my time. Have a look at the bottom quote. And while I bring the next part up, I want you to just put in the chat box what that bottom sort of quote or statement says. And it says, if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to take time for your illness. I just want you to put 1 or 2 words, what that means to you when you read that. And what I mean by recharging as you're doing that, there's loads of things we can do. And I did this, well, my wife did this with me the other week. I said, I'm a bit fed up. I says, I'm having a tough time at work. I says, I've got all this stuff on. I've got a bit of a health issue, nothing too bad. But I says, oh, and she goes, well, have you been looking after yourself? And I went, oh, yeah. Says, I've been running. And she went, when did you last go for a run? And I went, February. And she went, well, why aren't you? And I went, oh, I'll start tomorrow. Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. I still haven't gone. I've got to practice what I preach, of course. But I'm now playing squash twice a week. I'm now taking the dog out twice a day. So there's little steps I'm going to there. But it's so easy when I look at how I used to recharge and look after my mental and my physical and emotional health, how quickly when things go, that part of my batteries start to drain in different areas. And what I meant by looking at the left-hand, right-hand column, whichever way you're looking at it there, is just think about, what do you do for yourself to recharge? What do you do? But also, when was the last time you did it? When was actually the last time that you did that thing to look after yourself? And just while that's going on, I'm just going to have a quick look in it. I know I've got my colleagues in the chat box there. Yeah, keep time in my diary for lunchtime walks at the gym. Really, really good. Went swimming this morning. So lots of good stuff, and yoga last night. Good. So that's really important, because if we don't take time, as it says there, for our wellness, at some point we will get to burnout, where we then forced to take time for our illness. And where would you, I don't want you to answer this, but where would you rather be? Emotionally, physically, and mentally healthy, or waiting until someone goes, it's now time to stop, and you're going to need X period of time off, and it's going to be a longer journey getting you back to where you are. Being resilient is being able to have those people around you, as well as yourself, that can help identify when the battery's getting a bit low, because you're important. Self-care is not selfish. And when times are tough, we've got to rely on these things that help us recharge, so we can take an extra step forward, whatever that looks like. Now, while you're doing that, you can still put things in the chat box there, and I'll keep an eye on that. I know my colleague Dawn's in the back as well, but I just want to keep an eye on it and see what's going on. Someone put, yeah, self-awareness. That's really good. So what we're going to do, I'm not going to ask you to write this in the chat box or anything, because it can be quite personal, but we're just going to go through a bit of questions, a few questions, and I want you to answer the questions to yourself. Okay, I want you to answer the questions to yourself and just think about each one. Now, you might put one name, you might put several names. It's okay. The name you put might be your dog, your cat, your goldfish. It doesn't matter. Okay, it's about what is there for you. So the first kind of question, because we've got to think about who we connect with, is this: who do you have in your life who listens to you? So when you're missed your bus, when you've maybe not got the job you wanted, or you're going through a tough time, who's there to really listen to you? And I don't mean the person that, you know, you go, right, I've been to Tenerife, and they go, oh, let me tell you, I've been to 11 Tenerife and my holiday was better. Okay, it's not those kind of people. It's the people that listen to you and don't steal your conversations. Like I said, you don't have to put this in the chat box. I just want you to think about it. So the next time when you're having a tough time or something's not gone quite right, is who's going to be there to listen to you? Who do you have in your life who encourages you to look at, like I said, my wife's like that, get back out there. Yeah, she's even got to the point where she's put my trainers by the back door. So I can't even have the excuse I can't find my trainers. She's done that. She's put them by there. So who encourages you to look after yourself? Who's going to be that cheerleader that is in your corner when times are tough, at home, work, health, social, doesn't matter where, that's going to do that for you? Who do you have in your life that you can have a good laugh with? In fact, just a quick nod of heads or waves. Is morale important in your workplace? If we look at morale, yeah. I love going to work and having a bit of fun. I can't imagine going to work and just being sad and miserable. I want to go to work and enjoy it. I want to have a laugh and have belly laughs and enjoy what I do. So who in your life can you laugh well with? Who gives you that sense of fun, sense of humor? Who do you have in your life who helps you look at things from a different Christine, I like that. Yeah, a couple of minions. Okay, that's me. You've got me now. I love memes and I love stuff like that. So you could be in my team, definitely, or I could be in your team. It doesn't really matter. But who do you have in your life who looks at things from a different perspective? That's really important. Now, last week, I'll be really authentic and honest with you. I was having a tough time about something, and I was looking inwards and going, God, I'm making mistakes. I'm useless. I'm rubbish at this. What's going on? And the person I was having a conversation with on Teams, not face to face, on Teams, actually made me look at it from a different perspective, and it was brilliant. They shared a little quote with me and said, "Have you?" And it was like a little light bulb. I couldn't see it for myself, but I know that person's there, and I know they're there, and that's just wonderful. That's in my little resilient toolkit. That person's there to make me look at things from a different perspective. Who do you have in your life who accepts you as you are? That's really difficult sometimes because we see ourselves maybe in a different way to other people. But who does? Who have you got that accepts you who you are? Who do you have in your life who encourages you to do those new things or try those new things? Because like I said, I know I've been on many a thing and people go, oh, Dave, what you need in your life is Pilates, yoga and mindfulness. And I'm like, no, I don't, but I'll give it a go. I've given it a go. It doesn't work for me. But you know what? They encouraged me to try it, and I'm glad I tried it. And then someone said, have you tried gardening? And that, I think that was in the sort of first lockdown. I was like, nah, just let it go. And actually, I love it. I kept it up. I enjoy it. So it's brought an extra thing into my life. And who do you have in your life that you can truly relax with? So these are your champions. These are your cheerleaders. Now, why did I ask really? Because often we have someone that listens to us, but are they really listening? Are they really encouraging you? Do they really laugh with you? Do they really accept who you are? Because communication, that talking, that sharing, that staying connected, it's a bit like your phone. Your phone is connected with all the people in your contacts, on your WhatsApp groups, on your whatever the social media platform of the year is. But they're your champions. They're the people you need to remain connected with. And when you're going through all this emotional roller coaster when times are tough, you need these people because it's tough trying to do it by yourself. We need people to support us. So when we look at those people, though, are they our energizers or are they our drainers? Now, I'm not going to ask you to put this in the chat box, but in your home life, work life, social life, who's your energizers and drainers? Now, often I'll get people to do this as a bit as an exercise. And if they've wrote down more drainers than energizers, then they're in the wrong camp. Negativity breeds negativity. Positivity breeds positivity. So if you're feeling low and you've come into, you've switched the news on, drainer, You've drove to work on those lovely roads on the way to wherever, full of potholes, drainer, and you get into work and you meet the BMWs, the bitching, moaning and whingers. And at 8:30, the day's off with doom and gloom. Well, how are you ever going to get your battery levels up if everyone is just zapping it? So what do we do about that? Now, I'll be real offensive with you once again. I've done this exercise with my family and gone, who's my energizers, who's my drainers? And often I'll put my dad in the drainer, because after about 15 minutes of talking to him, it's just doom and gloom, because he's at that age, he's 87, where he's giving you a survival list in the paper. I see John's died round the corner, I've out survived, and you're like, oh my God. And then it's, oh, the tax, the cost of living, and you're like, I know, Dad, I know, we've had the nice conversation, now I'm starting to feel it. So what do we do about all this? Don't get me wrong, my dads can also be in my energizer camp as well. But when I'm feeling low, when maybe my resilience is low, if I'm surrounded by more drainers and energizers, how am I ever going to get out on that treadmill, going to get up and do the thing that I need to do? And what we've got to think about there, who are these people? Who are they really? It doesn't take a lot of people in your team to bring you down. How are you going to move away from them, for instance? Because we know the benefits of energizers. They can motivate us, inspire us, encourage us, give us that drive, make us smile, make us laugh, give us that energy to go and do something. But how can we lessen the impact of the drainers in our life? And I don't mean being rude and going, right, that's you, I'm cutting you off my WhatsApp groups, I'm cutting you, not pretend, I'll get rid of you on Facebook, they'll never know. It's not about that. It's about how you lessen the impact. How you lessen the impact. Because actually, once you start to feel your battery levels going down again, and you're not at a great place, then it's going to be harder. So actually, do you need to move into your energizer camp? Go and find who they are. Go and get motivated by them. Maybe inspired. Don't have to be a lot of people. It might be the one. It might be your dog, your cat, your goldfish, whatever it is. But when you're there, are they going to be the real listeners, the real encouragers? Because it's hard to do it all by ourselves. Now, when we are feeling low, or we're not feeling maybe resilient enough, then it's okay to have what they call a bit of hippo time. I don't know if anyone's ever come across the hippo time or read the book Sumo. Sumo stands for shut up and move on. Okay, it's a nice little book. And he talks about hippo time in it, because hippos like to wallow. They like to be sat wallowing before they do anything and move on and use some energy. So we allow ourselves this time. We acknowledge our frustrations, disappointments, can be anger as well. Because actually, as it says there, we're not robots, we're human beings. Everything's connected, physical, emotional, mental well-being. We can't simply turn those things off, our emotions. We're not, and I hear it these days. Honestly, I teach leadership, and I hear it these days where managers, well, here, not just in this organization or other organizations, but they'll say, well, you know, Dave needs to come to work and leave his problems at home. There's no magic scanner when I walk into work that zaps them all into the car until I leave at 5 o'clock. And it's the same when I go home. There's no magic scanner at the front gate that leaves all my work problems at home. They're with me. So actually, it's good to acknowledge where they are, but what do we do about it? How do we move? So it allows us that opportunity to experience the emotional lows. Emotions are normal reactions to situations or experiences that we go through. And understanding that and embracing that is really, really important. And we'll come on to a little bit about belief systems in a second, just a brief touch on it. So one thing about hippo time, though, is when you're there, look at the first bullet point. It says, be careful who you talk to. So imagine if you're talking to a drainer. Imagine if you're talking to that person that really doesn't listen to you. Well, that's not going to be great, because that can make you feel worse. So when you're doing that, you need to find that person who really listens to you, that person who really motivates you, inspires you, encourages you to do something, that energizer. It also says be careful how many people you talk to, because it can be quite tiring repeating the same thing over and over and over. And we do this thing when we do trauma risk management, where we'll have a conversation with someone like 3 days after the incident has happened. But then when we meet them again in a month's time, we don't ask them to talk about it again, because we don't want that potential re-traumatization. So actually, we don't want people to repeat it and repeat it. So once again, be mindful who's in your camp, who's your cheerleaders, but it's not leaders as in 20 odd, 30 odd people you're telling the story to over and over. And remember, do something you enjoy. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world, but when you go back to that list that we looked at, it might be, I think someone put something in there about doing some yoga or whatever. That's important. If it's important to you, go and do it. It might be reading your book, or Audible if you're like me and you're a lazy reader because you can't be bothered, just get someone to read it for you. Or it might even be something like having a bit of chocolate, having a nice warm drink, sitting in your garden, whatever it is. But do that small thing that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be get your spandex on and go and boot out a 20-mile bike ride. Just do the small step, the small goal that gets you there. Because when we're in hippo time, it is okay not to be okay, but it's not okay for us to do nothing about it. So actually, we should do something. And one of the things we need to do, and the sort of slide here, we've got a picture of a cloud, and then it goes over here, is for the small minority of people can go straight from here to here. But the majority of us need some what we call hippo time, time to process, understand, experience what we go through. So it provides, as it says at the top, that mini break for us to go, I just need some quiet time to myself, or I just need this. That time out helps us to move on. We can look at it in a different perspective. Maybe that's where we need that person who encourages us to see things differently. It allows us the opportunity to experience emotional lows, be honest with our feelings. Now, down the bottom there, we've got some things about emotions, unhelpful beliefs. Showing emotions makes you appear weak. Now, I remember getting that told to me by my dad. I remember getting told in the military, don't show your emotions, man up, dry your eyes, princess, and carry on. Well, actually, that's not healthy. Emotions are part of what makes us human. We are emotional human beings. We act on emotions. And actually, as a man, and for any men on here, men should never express their emotions. Of course we should. It's a normal release valve. It's normal to cry, to be sad, to be angry, to be happy, to be whatever, because they're normal. They are what make us. They are our soul. And showing emotions embarrasses other people. No feeling is wrong. It is what we do with the feeling that counts. So actually, when we are down in hippo time, it's our time to wallow and ponder what we've gone through. But one thing we must remember, it's a valid place to be for a period of time. We need to move on. We need to move on. And spending too long there will not aid our recovery. So we need to go back. Who's our cheerleaders? What do I do? What have I done before? Walk the dog, do some yoga, do some reading, whatever it is. We go back to that bit of a toolkit that can help us move out of this hippo time and move forward. Now, there's 5 pillars of resilience when you look at it. And there's lots of other readings out there, by the way. This is just one that I sort of was looking at and I was interested in. And when we look at this, that's self-awareness, a clear perception of your own personality, your strengths. I mean, weakness, I don't really like that word. I like areas of opportunity or development. Okay, so straight away I've turned something into something different. But I do like that because I know where I'm not good. And actually, having self-awareness is really important about how then I respond to that event or that incident or that thing that is going on. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes about how we can respond differently. Mindfulness, okay? Open attention of the present. Observe your thoughts, your feelings, okay? Often when we look at mindfulness, if anyone joined Satish's meditation this morning, okay, that's really good. It's about the breathing, it's about being there. I like to be mindful in nature. I love going for a walk on a rainy day because there's a couple of bonuses. First of all, there's no one about. Great. I don't have to talk to people. I don't have to bump into people. The second, the smells you get from the grass and the trees and that noise you get from when the rain's hitting the canopy. That's where because resilience is personal, that's where I get my mindfulness from. It's that living in the moment part for me. So just think about that. What's your self-awareness? What's that emotional intelligence you have around yourself? Where are you going to get your mindfulness part from? And self-care. Self-care is important. It's not selfish. Have your break. How many? As a coach, I coach within NHFT and stuff like that. And the amount of people I come across go, oh, I don't have time for a break, Dave. I eat my sandwich while I'm typing. I don't know why I'm doing that, by the way. I don't know if you eat your sandwich like that, but I eat my sandwich and I'm typing and I never have a break. And you're like, whoa, when are you going to have a break then? He went, I won't get finished. And burnout, you'll eventually get a break because you'll be forced to take the time. So self-care, it doesn't have to be, like I said, the marathon runners, the whatever. It's sometimes the small breaks you have. Maybe you're going for a car park chat with one of your friends, just getting away from your laptop. Maybe at home, where you're going to find that selfish time. Like I said, me and my wife and our family, we have our selfish time. Monday nights, Thursday nights, 7 o'clock, I'll go and play squat. I go Kettering on a Thursday, Uppingham on a Kettering on a Monday, Uppingham on a Thursday, because that's my selfish time. So no matter what's going on, we have our selfish time. My wife has hers as well for all the running and stuff she does, because self-care is important. Relationships, home, work, social. What is your connection like? Because we've got to stay connected with people. And for some people, their relationship might be their pet. Maybe they don't have a lot of people around them, and that's okay. Some people are very insular, silo. For some people, if we look at the new generations coming through now, it's a virtual world where they have their relationships, their friends are on a gaming tag. And, you know, we must acknowledge and understand that just because I like a couple of mates and that's it, for some people, they might be a virtual gaming tag, and that's okay. But where they build those positive relationships, and they once again should be the people in your energizers. And then what's your purpose? Now, I always ask myself, why do I do what I do? Because I love doing what I do. I love my job because I know it'll impact potentially. I could be a service user one day. So I want to make sure that the service I get is going to be the best. So my purpose is trying to do what I do because it'll impact on someone down the line. It's also, what purpose have I got with my family, my friends? Maybe it's a faith, a religion, whatever it is. What's your purpose? Some people do charity, some people do charity runs, all sorts of stuff, or they're members of a club or a team or whatever. But where's your purpose? Now, these 5 pillars, once again, you don't have to religiously live with them every day, but how do you build on them? How do you build on them? Because the more you do, the more chance that you have and will do when you come against some sort of adversity or difficulty, be more resilient to it, because you'll have these pillars to support you. Now, what can we do though? What tools, what resources are available? Now, I've just picked a couple because there is lots out there, and including in your own organizations, you'll have all your networks and your well-being teams and your mental health first aiders and your champions and all this. And there's some things that I like. And when I looked at, I don't know if anyone's read the Chimp Paradox by, you know, it's a great book. Do I ever read it religiously? No. I've gone to the bits that I want because that's how I work. There's my resilience. Find the bit you need, Dave. Have that, move on. That's it. That's how I work because it's personal to me. And when I looked at it, now many years ago, in 2008, I had some CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. And one of the things I had was a lot of anger. And going straight to snap, emotional snapping and red mist. And one of the things that I worked with my military CPN was about breathing. was about that breathing and pausing. And she made me visualize a big red button that said stop. So if I was about to get really angry, she would say, breathe, count to 10, and picture this. And I used to picture it. I used to picture this big red emergency button in front of me, and I would mentally push it and go, stop. Before you answer, say, do, stop. And at that point, I was then able to either walk away or, and I use this now, I'll ask a question. So what I hear you saying is A, B, C, and D. And that just gives me that time to slow down and think rationally rather than act emotionally. And there's lots of different ways you can use this. Even with my children, I've told them to count to 10. Simple things when they're in school. Go, oh, I'm so fit. I'm like, just count to 10 and then think about what can you do about it and what can't you do about it before you act. When we're low on resilience and our emotions are low, there's more chance of us acting irrationally and acting on emotion rather than going, hang on, let's just put the brakes on. How do I deal with this? So when we're trying to be more resilient, one of the best things to do, or one of the things we can do, is just pause. Walk away, take a drink, do whatever it is, ask the question back. Get some thoughts back. I always say ask people their thoughts rather than what do they feel about stuff. So I'll often say, so just on what you're saying to me, what's your thoughts on where that's come from? So they've now got to think about it. Well, I'm thinking about it. It just gives time to settle. And particularly, does anyone who drives cars? Everyone drive car drivers? Yep. Anyone do that thing where you won't let someone in because the road said merge about 2 miles ago? Okay, why don't we let people in? Because your brain's gone into the chimp mode and going, how dare they cheat and get in front of me? They're going to steal half a second. And actually, what's the worst thing that can happen if they got in front of you? Nothing. They take about half a second, because when you get to the roundabout, they go left, you go right. So how do we learn to slow that down, especially when times are busy and things are happening? So just thinking about, actually, I've done that. Let me go and get my champion who can help me. So I'm off to go and get Wendy because I know she's my listener. I'm off to go and get Alex because she's the one that's really going to motivate me to do it differently. We've got to think about resilience is not just about myself. It's about the people in my connections that are going to help me get through it. You can try mindfulness. Mindfulness is really great. Satish has got a session on every morning this week. But are you mindful or mindful? So how are we going to deal with that? Where is your mindset at? Actually, is there anyone currently on this call right now emailing away or using their mobile phones? Okay, I can see some grins. That means yes. I'm not going to hold you to judgment, but your mind's full. You're not here. You're not present. Be present. Be in the moment. At dinner times, who has their mobile phones next to them? At evenings, who has it? And this is where we become busy. And actually, mindfulness. Learn to switch off. Learn to switch off. Clear your head. Calm down. When you go to bed at night, get rid of all that gumph. Don't have it as an alarm clock. Because before you go to bed, you quickly check your face app. Or the book of face and see who aren't your real friends on there, the ones you've accepted from school. I haven't seen them for 50 years, but apparently I'm really good friends. Okay, and then in the morning, you look at the alarm. You don't hit the alarm button. You go, oh, there's icons. Someone's WhatsApp me. And you're straight in there. So get rid of it all. Pay attention to your thoughts, the sounds. Like I said, for me, mindfulness, when I go for a walk, I hear the wind, the rain, I smell the sounds, particularly my dog half the time. But what's going to bring you to that present so you are mindful? Now, you can Google this 2 bits. There is tons of stuff out there. And this is what I'm saying, is when I looked at this and I was doing this session, I went, I can't tell these people how to be resilient. I can't go, by the way, go and bounce back. You're a rubber wall. Happy days. It don't work like that. You've got to create the mini habits yourself. You've got to find your own tips, your own people, your own network, your own connections. You've got to look after yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever it might be. Start now and build those little building blocks. Create the small goals. Where do you want to be next week? Where do you want to be the week after? So then when something does happen, it's going to happen. It's going to hurt emotionally, physically, whatever. But then you can go, I know. Alex might support Liverpool, but she's a good listener. I'll go and have a chat with her. And off you go. And you've got your first step in the right direction. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. But if I keep talking, if I keep connecting, it will hopefully become more comfortable. And my journey through it won't be as long. And there's lots of good apps out there. So have a look out there. I mean, Finch is a new app. I did download it. I tried it for 3 weeks and it annoyed me because it's like Tamagotchi. People of my age will remember Tamagotchi. It's like keeping a pet alive, okay? So you've got to find what works for you. I have Calm. Calm's a great app. I like the little breathing technique on it. So one thing for me is when I get in that moment of, oh my God, I'm getting told off or I've got something wrong, put it on, watch the little circles. Oh, calm down, Dave, calm down. And then what do I do next? How do I learn from this? How do I grow? So just think about what is it you need to make you more resilient. Write it down. Have a little bit of a plan. Take the first step. Martin Luther King has a great quote, and it was, you don't have to take the big leap into faith to understand it. Just take the first step. To be more resilient, just take your first step. What will your first step be from today? What will your second step be? And it might even be that tomorrow you put in, I'm going to have a 10-minute break. I ain't going to eat my sandwich all over my desktop, okay? Or I'm not going to do back-to-back calls. I'm actually going to have a bit of a break for me. I'm going to take that self-care, emotional, mental, physical, whatever it looks like for you. And like I said, I'm not sitting here as some sort of doctor in resilience. I got a CSE in Welsh. That's me. Find your way. Make it personal. Build your own resilience so you're halfway there when things happen. Now, did anyone learn to ride a bike as a kid? Okay. Do you remember when you fell off? How many of you jumped up and went, I need a counsellor? Or who shouted, I need my mum or my dad to put me back on? And your mum and dad came over and they got the bad back for about 3 weeks while they tried to help you get back on the bike and learn to ride it. And some kids had a little wobble and they need a little bit more help, but eventually off they went, didn't they? And some children didn't quite get that, so they needed a bit more support. So they had to go outside their network. So mum and dad nipped down to Halfords or whatever it was back in the day and spent a couple of quid on some stabilizers. And they bunged some outside support on it. But eventually they went off pedaling and then they took one stabilizer off. So you did that daft ride bit for a bit where you went, this isn't right. And then you had them both off and you went on your journey. And you'd fall off at some point, but you would get back on. What did you learn? How did you grow? How will you become better? How will you become faster? So we all need support. There's all times when things hurt or we fall off or whatever goes wrong. And who are those people going to be from your connections, home, work, health, social, that are going to be your bad backers that are going to run alongside you, or the people that are going to be your, we need to put some stabilizers on for a bit, Dave, just while we get you up. And eventually it'll feel uncomfortable and you'll be hovering over the brakes and it'll be, but eventually you'll go, I'm actually doing this. I'm not even thinking about it. And actually I'm on my journey. So just what I want you to do, just for 30 seconds, just before I ask you to do something, is just quick. And this is the beauty of this. For 30 seconds, reflect from the moment you were born to where you are now. What have you been through? What have you been through in your 20, 30, 40, 52, whatever age you are? What have you been through in your life? And I bet it's a lot. And I bet there's some wonderful things and there's been some difficult things. but you've gone on that journey. How many times or how often do you sit and reflect on what got you to where you are now? Because no one did that journey for you. You did it. You got in the job you are now. You take the credit for that. You pat yourselves on the back. You got into the relationships you are now. You got into the family you are now. You got into wherever you are in your life. You did all that work. And the tough times, I bet there's been a lot less than there has good times. And you will find that in those tough times, you will have learned something. But the next time they happen, what will you do? What will you do differently? Because resilience isn't something I can give you. I haven't got a bag of it, and there isn't an email belonging to it. It's about how you go out there and find it and build it. Every day is a school day. Thank you very much for listening. Any questions, I'll hand over to Dawn to see if there's anything in the chat box. But please, if you've got anything, raise your hands or do whatever you need. Dawn, anything in the chat box?
Hi, Dave. No questions as such, but lots of lovely comments, suggestions for people to be able to look through, share. So it's well worth having a look through once you get a moment. Sure. We have got, got a great session from Laura is saying that. But if anyone has got any questions or any thoughts they want to share with Dave, please put your hand up and talk to him. He's not scary. Apart from that, Dave, we've got some lovely things in the chat. So things that people have taken on to do. So I love I've started to book reflexology treatments on a Friday afternoon.
Nice.
As soon as I finish work. So getting a relaxing treatment.
Yeah.
So Sarah also does telling her son to stop, count and walk away when he gets worked up, which was similar to something you talked about.
I like that.
No phones at the table room at home.
We have a really cheesy one at home, right? Okay, it's really cheesy because we all have phones in the house. And when I was asking my kids, me and my wife would be like, "Oh, it was school." They'd go, maths, English, literacy. How was your day? All right. And there was never much. So we reinvented it, and it's really cheesy. You don't have to do it, but this is what we do. We ask, "Who made you laugh today? Who made you laugh?" And a conversation will grow. Or we do this, it's a have a small song. We'll go, "What have you done today?" We don't sing it. "What have you done today to make yourself feel proud?" And what you get is a conversation. Whereas normally if we just say, "What did you do today?" It's like maths, English, literacy. The other thing, and Dawn, we talk about this quite a lot, is often, particularly with children as well, about resilience here. If I go in my boy's room when he's being feral and I say, "Clean your room," and he goes, "Why?" And I go, "Because I'm your dad." I'm just telling him. But actually, if I say, "Well, what's your thoughts on if you don't clean your room?" Well, he has to think about it. And I can leave him with that. And guess what he does? He cleans the room because he's thought about it himself. He's growing his own resilience. Apologies, Dawn, I was butting in there. Off you go. Anything else?
Well, I was just going to give you a bit of feedback on what have you done today to make you feel proud. It would be so much better if you did sing that every night. There we go. But yeah, do something today that your future self will thank you for. Robert also does that with the kids as well. Miranda sings it, says Laura, which is what I love. That's what I'm looking for. Lots of people just commenting on what an amazing session that was for them. Creating new habits, taking control of my life. The list is endless, so there's lots of things.
And habits, those habits don't have to be world beating things, just small nuanced changes that you do. It might be once a week to start with, but you start with that break. You have your 10-minute break tomorrow. Next week you have 2 10-minute breaks. The week after you have and if you're in work and if you're a leader, a manager, and your team see you doing that, they will role model that. And that's compassion, because empathy is you can hear them going, "We really need a break." But the compassion bit is showing them, is guiding them, is allowing that environment, create the environment as well. And that works really well. But yeah, anything else, Dawn? And I'll hand back to Alex.
Robert listens to Heather Small's Proud when he needs to pick me up, so we'll get Robert singing it the next time we've got him face to face. And Laura, the last thing is Laura found books again. Bring it to work and read it at lunch. So.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Or if you're like me and lazy, Audible.
Audible it.
Audible, that's the one. That's the one.
We're going to do a bit of a team sing song at some point, I believe. So I'll hand back over to yourself and Alex, but thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. That was great. I think I echo the feedback that's coming up in the chat. I think it's really important and a good reminder that we need to make time for ourselves or we'll be forced to. I think it's really poignant. And I'm really intrigued to know how many people have been practicing their fingers throughout that, because I've done it with you on sessions before and it's the strangest thing and you never get used to it. So thank you everybody for attending today and for giving up your time to attend. As you know, feedback is a gift, so we'd be keen for you to give us some feedback on this session. The chat, we've popped the link in the chat, but we've also got the QR code on the screen, and we do use the feedback just to help shape future events. There's also a number of resources online and the link for the websites in the chat as well. Have a look on there at the resources and the timetable, and please do book on to some other events during the week. If you're attending, please get tweeting, Instagramming and Facebooking, or Book of Face, I think you called it, Dave, with the hashtag VWB23. And then just finally, if you've been affected by any of the information or experience shared by Dave today, we do obviously have people that you can talk to, and we've got the contact details there on the screen. So thank you again for joining us today, and thank you for your time. If you're watching on catch up, please do spread the word about our festival this week and take some time out, maybe during a team meeting, to watch some of our recorded sessions. And thank you to everything you do for the health and social care across Northamptonshire. Enjoy the rest of your day and evening. Thanks, everyone.